Okay, so now we're going to move on to comments. Now, comments aren't exactly as you may think. Like a lot of people know that comments are something like good about something. So if there's a good video on, say, YouTube, you might see a lot of the comments saying like good video and all that. Now, HTML comments are actually a little bit different from that, because they don't have to necessarily say something's good about this. HTML comments are actually a good bit different. Now, when you write code for comments, that the content in the comments doesn't feature on the web page. Now, this might be a little bit strange and a bit why would they have something like that? There's no point, but it is useful. Now, first of all, I'm going to show you what a comment starts off with. So we have the start of a tag. Very simple. Now the first character we would have in our comments is an exclamation mark. Okay. Following the exclamation mark, we're going to have two dashes like this. Now, as you can see, the moment I put in that second dash, all of these the code from here down became green. Now, when you see green code, that basically means it's a comment. Now, if this code that you want to keep on your web page, but it is green, simply type before it all two more dashes and then close a tag, and it returns back to normal. So as you can see right now, this code here is actually green. Okay, so now we're going to go right where all the between the second and the third dash, basically where it separates the two tags. I want to throw something in, like this is a comment. Okay, so like that, and we're going to save that. Now, as you can see, it's the only bit in the code that says this is a comment. Now we're going to go back to our web page. So as you can see, this is it so far. I'm going to refresh it, and you can see nothing has changed. So that's what a comment is doing there, right? That you can type away in the code and nothing happens. Now we're going to go back to the code. Now you may think something like is strange about that, but I'm going to show you something. I'm going to get rid of what I have here. Now I'm going to choose say this list here, the unordered list. Now before it all here, I'm going to throw in the start of a comment. Okay, now as you can see, the code went green. I'm going to save that. Now the unordered list is there in the code, but when I refresh it, it's gone. So that's what comments do. So whatever's in the middle of the comments does not feature on the browser, and it is useful. So, and how it's useful is, say for example that if this was all like completely bulked up together, and you found it hard to tell the difference between what the code is doing. So if you looked up at one, like, as long as you read it code by code, you might understand it. But if you were just reading it straight down through, you'd be like, what the hell does all this code mean? And if you separate each bit of the code that you do understand properly by comments, you're able to properly separate them, and you can have, like, say, this is a list, this is a table, so on in the comments. So it helps to tell you what each of the bits of the code means, and basically then that it'll make it all easier to read. So that's why comments are useful. So they can tell you what each of the code kind of is doing right now, and it doesn't basically show up on the web browser. Now another thing is that, say if you're just after finishing your code and needed to quickly do something, and then you came back and forgot what you were going to do. Before it all, you could have, say, written a comment that said that, like, say, add in an image, or whatever you want, really. So that's another thing. So it can help to if you feel you're gonna forget something, comments can help by basically tell you what you said that you wanted to add on to it. And a final thing it can do is, as you can see right there, that if there was some bit of code there that you didn't want yet, but you knew you were going to still keep it, just comment it out. That's basically what comments can do. Okay, so as long as you understand what comments can do and what they're used for, this shouldn't be a problem, and it should be easy to understand. So just mess around with the comments, and as I said, practice makes perfect. So just work away, and we're going to move on to the next topic now. Okay, so now we're going to move on to identifiers. Now, identifiers can really take an element out of a group of elements and work on that one only. So, for example, if you had, say, 5 or 6 paragraphs, but you might have wanted to change maybe 1 or 2 of them only, that you could just simply just take those paragraphs and give them a color, and so basically identifiers would do that stuff for us. Now, instead of saying do some inline CSS to do it, it'll be pretty much just boring. It'll take some time up. And for example, if there was like say 2 or 3, it would kind of be pretty much kind of boring, just saying style for all 3, giving them the 3 of them the exact same font color, well, the color, font size, so on. So it can really save you time if, say, you gave all 3 of them the same identifier, and then do some CSS and use the identifier and give them all the same color and font size. So that can really help. So in HTML there's 2 types of identifiers. There is IDs and there's classes, and both of these do the exact same thing. It just makes it easier if there's 2 different types. So as you can see here, we have 2 paragraphs. Okay, now say for example I want to change the second one. Now I want to give the second one an identifier. So what I do is I have to go into the start tag, and then what I do is I'm going to assign it an ID. So ID. But you can also use class, so I'm going to show you that once I'm done here. So you just pretty much treat it exactly like an attribute, except you're going to use like ID or class. Now I'm going to throw in some random things, say second. Okay, since it's the second paragraph, so it kind of makes sense to use second. So if we go back up to our the top, and if you remember from my basic CSS tutorial, I did some like internal CSS. Well, I'm just gonna throw in some style tags, okay, like so, and then I'm gonna drop in P. So P, as we know, will affect all the paragraphs, but we only want to affect the second one. So what I need to do is I need to give it the ID sign. Now I really wouldn't say something like ID, like this, and then second. If you did this, it wouldn't work whatsoever. So you have to do it a different way. Now, ID and class have their own signs, right? So you don't have to go ahead and just say ID in like CSS and JavaScript. It just takes up a little bit of time, and all it is a simple press of a button. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to get rid of the word ID. So we have, like, as you can see here, P second, but between P and second we're going to put in the ID sign, and the ID sign is a hashtag, and the class one is a different sign, and I'll show you that one in a short while. So here we have P # second, which basically tells the web browser take the paragraph with an ID of second. That's all it's doing. And then if you remember from CSS that, say, if I give it the color green, that the text should turn green. Okay, so this is basically going to be our CSS, and down here is our HTML. So paragraph ID second and paragraph ID second. Okay, so they both match. So now if we go back to our code, now as you can see here that it's green. Now as you can see that because one of them is black and the other is green, the identifier works very well. Now, if say you made one mistake, so for example, if I, instead of having the hashtag there, said ID and went back to my web browser, that, as you can see now, it's black. So that pretty much proves that there's no point in having the word ID in there. Just use its sign, the hashtag. Okay, and it proves it as well that if you say got rid of the D in there, or any random letter, or you can get rid of the ID in total incomplete, again total, and then if I sit then refreshed, well, usually I have green, but you know, so even if I just got rid of this, so this is just to prove it, basically both of them will become green, like so. Okay, so that is why identifiers are really useful. Now, as I said, there's a second identifier class. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to change the word ID to class. So as I said, they both do the same function, but instead of a hashtag, we're going to put a dot. So a hashtag is for an ID, a dot, like the full stop, is used for a class. So we put in the class name, second, and when we go back to it, basically the second one keeps its green color. So that's basically on identifiers. So there's a small amount of practice, but it's really helpful. So just keep on working away with it, and you know, you'll just get really good at being able to take some of the elements out of a whole group of them and being able to you know, assign them their own properties. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the last two things I'll be covering in this tutorial, and the two things are horizontal lines and breaks. Now, first of all, as you may know, if you looked up on Wikipedia and scrolled down and go down from section to section, you would have noticed that between between two sections you would have seen a horizontal line. Now, to do this in your own website, you're going to be using a tag that has a keyword of HR. Now, what I want to do here is I'm just going to go between the table and the definition list. Now, so I'm going to open a tag. I'm going to have the letters HR for horizontal, put a slash, so it's kind of like an image tag, because what's going to happen here is that the horizontal line is just like the image, where you won't have a pair of tags but one single tag. So the slash won't be before the keyword for a closing tag, because there is no closing tag, it's just one single tag. So this is exactly right here on line 29 what the horizontal line will be like in the code. So when we save that, we're now going to look for a new change in the website between the table and the definition list. So we go there, okay, now the definition list and the table, and when we refresh it, there you go. So there we have the horizontal line. Okay, so now that you have a good idea about the horizontal line, let's move on to the break. Now breaks, if you think about it, like that if you kind of break something, it kind of like can move it out of the way. Like say if you smashed, like say, a chair leg or anything. Well, that chair leg is kind of a bit bad to break. Or say if you broke a chair, for example, it would bend out of the way completely. But this is kind of what it's like for HTML, where it kind of breaks the line, and because it's on like in a Word document, everything moves to the next line. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you what I mean. Okay, so say I took this paragraph. Now, as you may know, that if you see, since you've seen in the web browser, that it's just one continuous line. That if I just add in the break tag, which looks exactly like the horizontal line tag, except instead of HR, it is BR. When I save that now, that when I go back to my web browser, okay, so this is our paragraph, reload, and there you go. As you can see, it's no longer on a straight line. The word paragraph has now been broken off of that line and put underneath it all. So that is what I mean by breaking. What I mean by breaks, really. So this can be a really helpful, thing to use, because if you say you like writing poems and you like are interested in both poems and websites, and you want to say that you like read this recent poem or something like that, and you want to tell everybody about it or to your website, that if you just wrote your paragraph out like completely on the line and then checked on the web browser, what's going to happen is it's not going to look exactly like a poem. It's going to look like a massive paragraph, which you don't want. So at the end of every sentence that you have of your poem, just put in a break tag. It'll clear everything up and make everything simpler. Now, also you may be wondering, why do we need a break tag? Well, in order to actually say why, well, HTML it kind of sees things as white space. Now, what white space is, right, is that if, say, this paragraph right here, that there's one space, right? So one space is one space, nothing too big about that. But if I even increased this big and save that, that would it appear as one massive big space? The answer is no. And that's because HTML it doesn't see an entire white space. If it sees one massive big gap of white, it'll just shut it down to one space, not one massive one, but just the regular width of one space. So that is why you need to be careful with poems and all that, any sort of thing that uses all its lines going straight underneath each other. So that proves it. It even happens with when you want to put things underneath each other. Okay, so as you can see, there's a good bit of a massive vertical gap between the two. If I saved that and went to check my web browser, we go back to here and we save it, nothing happens. So as I said, white space is vital. So breaks help to control the white space. So if you had poems and you had all under each other, there's a whole massive white space to the right. It'll take this as one massive. It'll take all this white space as one single space. So that's why you need to be careful. Okay, so that's all I'm going to cover in this tutorial. If you liked the tutorial, please hit the like button, and don't forget to keep watching on the rest of my videos. Hope you liked it, and thanks for watching.